Good evening. Our top story today, Bijan Robinson. What is the receiving upside? We have some new quotes from his new offense coordinator for the Falcons that is really interesting, really makes us, as a fantasy community, want to really jump to say, like, yes, he actually is going to be in that CMC role. I'm here to pour a little bit of cool water on that and tell you why I don't know if that's going to be the case, just based on recent history with this head coach in particular. Also, again, from the Falcons, we have some really interesting quotes again about Kyle Pitts and how he may be used in kind of not a similar way to Bijan, but you'll understand what I'm talking about as we get further into the show. There's so many quotes coming out. We're getting into training camp. Like we're just getting all the good stuff from these coaches. We got another thing from Mike McDaniels talking about how his backfield is going to set to play out. I'm here to tell you why I still think that Achan is the clear, far and away winner, even though he had a lot of praise for Raheem Mostert. There's Ayuk drama. There's Dak Prescott drama. There's drama all over the NFL, and we're going to talk about all of that to get you ready for your fantasy teams. All of that and more on Player Profiler today. What's up? I am excited. We are so dangerously close to training camp. Some teams are going to kick off their training camp this coming week. A lot of teams are going to kick it off the next week. We are here. We've gone through the pain. We've gone through the work. We've made it through the doldrums of summer, and boy, it's been super crazy outside of football. So I'm very ready to put all of my attention on football because it's bonkers town outside right now. Now, the first story, the lead story, is Bijan Robinson. So the Falcons are continuing to tout Bijan getting the ball in a lot of different ways, but I'm going to tell you why I'm still skeptical about that in PPR. So just to start off, and I'm glad I wrote this note, I'm picking nits here. Bijan Robinson is my third-ranked running back. He is, I think, 7th position in the first round to me. Like he's a clear locked and loaded first round pick. You could slide him up higher, and I have no issue with that. So again, we're really picking this when you're talking about the top two guys versus Bijan. This is kind of where I'm like creating a gap. But again, amazing player. If he was RB1 next year, would not surprise me. All right, but I do think as a fantasy community, we really want Bijan to work, and we're kind of like filling in the gaps of what the coaches are saying when they're not exactly saying these things. Like the first example is the CMC comment. The CMC comment where they said they're going to be using Bijan like CMC, that came from Bijan. And again, when the reporter asked him the question about how you plan to be used, the first thing Bijan said is, I don't know. And then eventually, as he got to the end of the answer, he's like, yeah, we're hoping to use me more like CMC. I do think that we completely ran with that, like the coach told us that directly. Now, they are saying they want to get him the ball in a lot of creative ways, and I do believe that. I do believe they want to hand him the ball, get him the ball out of the backfield in a ton of creative ways. But I guess based on what I've seen and based on just the data we have in Zach Robinson's scheme, it's not going to be a ton as a receiving option, and definitely not as a receiving option outside of like the traditional running back position. So Zach Robinson said that the offense is continuing to tailor and tweak things and find creative ways to get Bijan the football, obviously. But Robinson is going to play running back first and foremost. Now, even in this article, when I read it, the next sentence was like, so yeah, they're planning to use him like CMC, blah, blah, blah. I was like, whoa. He just said going to play running back first and foremost. There was that other CMC stuff was not part of Zach Robinson's quote. We just want to add it. We want to like really fill in that gap. And so I actually went and looked for the interview, and I found this on, I think it's the show's called On the Season with Peter Schrager from NFL Network. Definitely check it out. He does great stuff. And I'm not like a stenographer, so I wrote down some notes. This is not exact quotes, so do not take it verbatim, but this is just the vibe of the interview. So generally, Zach Robinson was saying there's nothing he can't do, but priority is you're a running back. Getting him the ball out of the backfield, which I thought was very interesting as well. And then he also said he can run wide receiver routes, but you don't want to overload him. And he even kind of broke a little news. He's dealing with like a little bit of a nagging injury right now. So all of that to say, like, again, like Bijan is incredible. And I am and was touting him as a receiver. He is elite. Like there's very few running backs who can run routes the way that Bijan can. But I truly think that we're looking at a situation where he's lining up in the backfield and they're putting the ball in his stomach and he's going to go. Now, he could always break off any play. And even on the limited passes he gets, he can go for 70 anytime. But to think that he's going to have the crazy amount of targets that he had last year, he was, where is it at? So last year he was third in the NFL with the most targets, caught the 6th most passes of any running back last year in his rookie season. And so, yeah, like I really think that he's going to be amazing. And I think even in PPR, he's still going to be great. He's my number 3 ranked running back in PPR. But to think that he'll be RB1 over those other 2 guys who are just the receptions are locked in for them, I worry about that. Now, let's take a look at like how Zach Robinson's system was last year. So Zach Robinson, he was the passing end coordinator for the Rams, and he's, for the most part, they're pretty much bringing the Rams system to Atlanta. That is at least the understanding as of now, according to all reports. So let's just take a look at what Kyren did last year from a receiving standpoint and what Bijan did last year from a receiving standpoint, and just see where we think the trend is going. You could kind of guess where I'm heading here. All right, so we're just going to look at 4 just really high-level metrics. Targets, Bijan was 3rd, as I just mentioned, at the running back position. Kyren was 24th. Receptions, Bijan was 6th. Kyren was 28th. Target share, which again, like Kyren missed a couple games, so you could definitely, this is more actionable stat. Target share, Bijan was 3rd again, and Kyren was 18th. And then yards per reception, Bijan was 8th, Kyren was 21st. Now, some of that is going to just be better because I believe Bijan is just a clear-cut, better profiled prospect than Kyren Williams is. But scheme is a big part of that too. I do think that there is a world where we're just not going to see as much receiving like greatness we saw last year with Bijan, but it's going to be supplanted with more rushing yards, more rushing touchdowns. When he does get the ball, he's probably going to, I wouldn't even be surprised he has a better yards per reception just because he'll be more efficient with less work in the receiving game. But I'm just not expecting like some like 50, 60 catch year from him. And I do think like that is kind of the realm of outcomes you need if you're going to be talking about the number 1 overall player in fantasy, which some people are saying, and definitely the number 1 running back. All right. So, yeah, like Bijan, but I'm going to continue to, I guess, keep my eye on him in PPR. So we're going to talk about more. I got to talk about the Kyle Pitts story on the other side of this break, but let's just find out about the Breakout Finder.
Oh, hey, it's Mr. Breakout Finder coming at you. The Breakout Finder features 3 key tools. A database of metrics that include speed score, college dominator, breakout age, but also Breakout Finder only stats like dynamic score, level of competition, teammate score. All of these things are part of the overall Breakout Finder algorithm that pinpoints the probability that a player will break out. Everyone's talking about my model does this and my model does that. Well, we give you the data points that go into the model. We have a feature that lets you compare players, and then we give you the precise probability of every wide receiver, every running back, sorted and filterable by class year. So when I'm talking to my friends and I need to show them why I'm so bullish on Player X, I pull out the Breakout Finder and bam, there he is. So go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's $5 to get the Breakout Finder, and then a couple extra bucks to get some of these additional enhanced stats. Go download it and thank me later.
Please go download that right now. I may be alluding to some of these players from the Breakout Finder in the show. So one thing I also want to say, we're going to talk about Kyle Pitts. There's a couple people in here. I'm not talking to a wall. If you got something, let it rip in the comments. Let it rip in the live chat. And also right now, if you're watching right now, if you think that Kyle Pitts is going to be a breakout or a bust, put it in the chat right now. Breakout or bust. Put it in the chat. All right, so as you guys do that, I'm going to start talking about Kyle Pitts. So Atlanta Journal-Constitution's D. Orlando Ledbetter reported that the Falcons plan to play Kyle Pitts at tight end and at wide receiver, no doubt. But really, I think the biggest takeaway is that they want to use him much, much more in line. Last year, this is according to PFF, he lined up at a bottom 4 rate in line. So he only lined up in line as a tight end with a hand in the dirt, 14.9%. That's incredibly low. And he was a top 6 player at both the slot lineup, or lining up in the slot, as well as lining up in the perimeter of the formation. And so they also were mentioning that Zach Robinson was really hyping him up as a blocker. So again, saw this quote, and I'm like, I just want to see the context of what he's talking about. So same show, Zach Robinson was talking to Peter Schrager on the season on the NFL Network. And so I just listened to the part about Kyle Pitts. And again, I'm not a stenographer, but this is kind of what the vibe was like. So he just praised Kyle Pitts. He's one of the first ones in the building when they came to Atlanta. He's one of the first guys in the building every day. He talked about Kyle Pitts wanting to be a complete tight end and being very underrated as a blocker. Saying he wants to do it all and that Zach Robinson is excited for him to take the next step. He has a very bad taste in his mouth from last year. And so that's at least encouraging to show that he's super motivated about it. And he's developing very good rapport with Kurt. So all of that is great news. That's really, really great. And I know some of the trepidation we sometimes see is about like either injury or just him having like super high variance. Like you're either going to get a tight end one season or he's going to be like a bottom 30 tight end. And so really my headline on this story is I think Kyle Pitts could be tight end one. He has clearly the ability to do it. But I also think that the scheme and the QB changes are going to reduce some of that incredibly frustrating variance we see from him on a week-by-week basis. All right, so I think so much of that comes from the scheme. I think a lot of that comes from him playing in line. If you think about it, let me see. We finally got a comment. Hold on. Bijan absolutely, positively, 1,000% catches 50 passes this year. We'll see. I hope and pray so. I really, really, really hope he does. He clearly has a skill set for it, but I mean, we'll see how that goes. All right. So Kyle Pitts, I think he's going to benefit significantly from being in line. I'm just going to kind of go through pros and cons. Biggest pro is like you're going to be facing a different type of player. You're not facing a nickel corner. You're not facing an outside corner. You're facing linebackers and safeties for the most part. They may throw the corners in there because he's such a threat. But it's just at least a better matchup. And he still cooks corners. So, I mean, this should be easy pickings. And in this scheme, they just give you such easy layup catch opportunities in this McVay scheme that he's coming into. Like it is like, I think while yes, he may not be like the A-dot king, like he's been over the last few years, he's going to have a significantly better target to catch ratio based on just the ease of the targets as well as the competition, again, that he's having to face on a down and down out basis. Now, I think the cons would really be, I guess, injury and I guess the fact that he's going to be in line and having to block. Maybe you're concerned about that. And I don't know, like, I mean, based on the health history he has, it doesn't really seem like the type of injuries I would expect to occur if you were like an inline blocking tight end versus something else. A lot of them tend to be like hamstring and other types of knee injuries. So maybe there's a concern there. But honestly, even though they're not big names, the Falcons did invest in some San Francisco blocking tight ends. So they brought in Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly as free agents for San Francisco this offseason. And then John Fitzpatrick, he was a 6th-round pick in 2022. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about these guys like that. But I do know at least the guys from San Francisco were blocking tight ends. And so, yeah, while they're going to definitely have him on the field to block, I do think he's still going to be running like a ton of routes. I'm not super concerned about that. And so I wanted to also I love doing comparisons. I feel like that's one of the best ways to understand or at least try to project what we're going to see when a player enters a new scheme, gets a new quarterback, yada, yada. And based on a comparison, I know that Higbee is the tight end in the McVay scheme and Zach Robinson is used to him. I don't think that's a great comparison just based on truly just the talent level. I just like if Higbee was Kyle Pitts, they would get him the ball more, and especially if they didn't have a Puka and a Cooper Kupp. But all that exists, so that's why to me Higbee's numbers are just kind of like hard to track. But we do have a new quarterback. We have Kirk Cousins, and we did see how he operated with TJ Hawkinson last year, who was tight end one. And so if I just tend to like really, if it's between QB tendencies and coaching tendencies, I'm gonna go with the QB tendencies. And this is really encouraging. It's really encouraging stuff. Sorry, so Kyle Pitts, from a target share perspective, we're just going to be looking at the things that may get impacted by him being in line or being used as a traditional tight end, yada, yada. Target share, he was 13th amongst the NFL tight ends with 17.8%. TJ was number one with 24%, over 24%. Slot snaps, Kyle Pitts clearly was the one of the top in the NFL, third. TJ Hawkinson was 21st. So, again, a lot of inline tight end formations there. Air yard share, which was really interesting. Like, Basically, all the other stats I'm going to tell you are like an improvement for Pitts, except for this one, which is going to kind of be the same, which is interesting. Kyle Pitts always leads the league in air yards. He's always up there for tight ends. TJ Hawkinson was second. So he was second in air yards share versus Kyle Pitts, which I thought was interesting. So even when TJ was in line, he was still getting those deep targets like that. Air yards, at least targets, rather. Average depth of target, Kyle Pitts was first, TJ was eighth. Yards per reception, Kyle Pitts was fourth, TJ was 23rd. So, yeah, I think just, again, shorter targets, more reliable targets. That's going to help him significantly in PPR, and obviously that's going to help reduce that crazy variance you see with him. Like, he basically has to score a touchdown some weeks to give you anything if he's obviously healthy. One of the things that's really exciting to me is he's never scored over 3 touchdowns in the season, which is hilarious, like Kyle Pitts. And obviously TJ went crazy last year. But just looking at like the red zone targets and the way that Kirk Cousins operates, in red zone targets, Kyle Pitts was tied for 34th in the NFL. He was actually tied with Higbee. But with Hawkinson was 8th in the NFL in red zone targets. Red zone target share, Kyle Pitts was 9%. That's crazy. And TJ Hawkinson was 17.6%. It's just night and day. Like, I think that we potentially are going to be getting significantly more receptions and more touchdowns, which in PPR or really any format is going to boost up his value so significantly. And again, you can't really predict touchdowns. It's the most unreliable stat in football. But when you've gotten literally 1, 2, and 3 touchdowns a year as a tight end in the NFL with such crazy talent, like if he gave us a 10 touchdown season, it would not surprise me at all. I think the way that Kirk uses his tight end, the athleticism of this tight end, and his willingness to kind of do whatever his coaches want him to, you're getting him in the 5th round still. Like, this is the part, like, you're getting him in the 5th round, guys. I mean, just come on. Like you said, like, he's a top 5 tight end. He could easily be a top 5 tight end. I think he could easily be tight end 1. And that's why, to me, this year, I'm not taking any tight ends in the 2nd round. I don't mind taking Kelsey in the 3rd, or Laporta in the 3rd. But for the most part, I'm just trying to wait as much as I can to take one of the tight ends in the 5th to 7th round. Because if Kyle Pitts is sitting for me in the 5th and 6th, I'm taking that all day. Crazy upside, but like I said, much more secure floor than he's had in the past. All right. You guys are not helping me out in the chat. I see one real time. He's doing his job. Everybody else, put in your comments in the chat. I want to know if you think this player is a breakout or a bust. So let me know what you think about Kyle Pitts, and we're going to start moving on to Raheem Mostert. All right. There's so interesting, the discussions about Raheem Mostert right now. A lot of people think like he's basically just going to repeat what he did last year, and I'm not one of those guys. So let's get into the story. All right, so ESPN's Marcel Louis-Jacques. I should read these names before I just start talking, because I should practice them, and I didn't. Marcel Louis-Jacques, I don't know, wrote that Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel said the whole group, pretty much led by Raheem Mostert, it is of quality and depth as good as I've been around. Great quote for Raheem. And then he also went on to say that he spent zero time trying to forecast the room because I recognize supreme competition when I see it, later suggesting that he hopes to incorporate divination in a more diverse manner in his upcoming 2nd season. So, like I've said in the past, and make sure you guys, like I've said it before, like make sure you guys check the description. Give me a follow at FF Strategist on TikTok. I'm talking about all this stuff every single day. Make sure you guys obviously follow us here and subscribe. Turn on the noti bells to know when we go live. We're doing this every single day. But if you were part of the journey last like few weeks, I've started to bring in like the coach speak meters. I really love what those guys do over there, and how they kind of evaluate like coaches in their press conference and just what the reliability of their statements are. And so for Mike McDaniel, even though there's not a lot of data still, he's still a young coach. He's still one of the most reliable coach speakers. So you can kind of take what he's saying to the bank as it relates to like, especially like injuries and playing time. And so I believe him. I believe that Raheem Mostert is the lead dog in this backfield, and these guys are all going to get the ball. Like, I think they're all going to get the ball. Even Jalen Wright, he's going to get the ball a decent amount. But while, yes, he's going to lead them in carries, Raheem Mostert, and I love the value. I also want to say that too. I still think H.N. is a league winner. I really do. I still think Achan is a league winner. Let's kind of break down Raheem Mostert, then we'll get to Achan. So he had a career year last year. 21 total touchdowns, 18 on the ground, 3 in the air. And he's going in the 8th round. So again, for the value of Raheem Mostert, like I'm never going to tell you not to draft him. Like 8th round, and that's 12 team. In 8th round in a 12-team redraft league, take him. Take him. Maybe in this scheme, which does a lot of outside zone where you're not getting like huge direct shots like that, like a power gap or something. Maybe he's just going to continue to be healthy. He's 32, but yeah, maybe he can stay healthy. So again, 8th round, why not? Why not? Especially hero or zero RB. But. He's absolutely not repeating last year, guys. Like he's just absolutely zero chance. You could timestamp this clip right now. Timestamp this right now. Zero chance that Raheem Mostert repeats what he did last year. Zero chance. Absolutely not happening. No way. No how. Not gonna happen. All right. So again, he's 32 years old. He's missed 27 games since he broke out in 2019. Like I guess we also like really, I don't know, we really do forget, like it's not, he was in Miami not just last year, but the year before that. So last year, he was the RB5 on 209 carries, 1,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 175 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns in the air. But in 2022, his first year in Miami, he kind of had very similar opportunities. But I'll tell you what the big difference is. You could probably guess it from what the stats I'm going to say. 181 carries, and this is in 16 games of 2022 and 15 last year. 181 carries for 891 yards, 3 touchdowns, 202 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns in the air. So, if you guys couldn't track the big difference, in 2022, he had 5 total touchdowns. 2023, he had 21 touchdowns. Honestly, again, opportunities per game, slightly more rushing yards last year, or slightly more rushing attempts last year, but then significantly less like receiving opportunities last year versus the first year. So again, like you could almost say everything evens out from an opportunity standpoint. And honestly, his yards per reception and yards per carry were very similar too. So you could really say like almost identical per game years. The one year he scored 5 touchdowns. The other year he scored 21. Do the math, guys. Do you think that's going to continue again? Now, could he give you 10 and just be solid? Sure. And again, 8th round, great. I'm cool with that. But these people think that he's going to repeat that is just wild business to me. People saying that they're ranking him over Achan is wild business to me. I don't get it. I also don't get it because I do, like, a lot of people are super scared of Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright, to me, is the eventual replacement for Raheem Mostert. I've already told you how many games he's missed. He's 32, and yes, he started his career kind of late. But now, like, if you equate him to, like, a 27-year-old running back, yeah, he's kind of at that point where, yes, now is the time for him to start to trail off. And Jalen Wright, again, even from the body type, is exactly the same as Mostert. Speed for days, plays similarly. Like, it's really, to me, is a one-for-one trade-off. So, and I don't think that Jalen Wright's going to take anyone's job. I think he would only start to play a lot if Raheem Mostert went down with an injury. But to me, and I really, really, really hate it because I love Raheem Mostert as a player. He saved me in a ton of leagues last year, and knock on wood, he doesn't get injured. But writing's on the wall. Like, at some point, he's going to fall off a cliff. So why wouldn't it be this year? And then you compare that to Achan. So 103 carries, 800 yards, 8 touchdowns in the air, 25 of 37, and 3 touchdowns per game. Or not per game, 3 touchdowns. He actually had 1 touchdown per game. Based on the stats, even just looking how they played, like Achan was already involved significantly more than Mostert was. You actually see like a pretty decent decline from 2022 to 2023 with Mostert, and Achan got more targets and was just a more involved person in the passing game. And the coaches are already saying, and we know we got Honest Abe as a coach from what he's talking about, Achan's getting more involved in the passing game. He's going to get more stuff down the field too. And again, I'm not even going to pretend like Mostert's going to get more carries than Achan. Like, it's going to happen. But Achan's efficiency was historic last year. Even if you see him like regress like a little less than what he had last year, I still think he's going to be a hyper efficient player. And if you just look at how, like, compare these guys from an efficiency standpoint, it's night and day as well. So Achan was the RB5 per game, and he had the 43rd highest snap share. 43rd. Mostert was the RB4. He had the 19th highest snap share, which is actually pretty low compared to the top 10 as well. So I mean, it's a great offense. We know that. But it is, again, just to really show you that even with less work than Mostert, there's a decently high probability that if it's relatively close, Achan's leaving him. Like, Achan is going to dust him if the total opportunities are close to the same. So again, I'm not even like saying that Achan's going to outdo or out carry or out. Well, he's definitely going to outcatch him, but he's not going to out carry Mostert. But even with less opportunities, Achan is just getting that shit, getting it done. He's getting it done. He's getting the thing done. Getting the thing done. I need to put a quarter in the swear jar. Yeah, and like I said, the coach has already said he's going to be doing more. So again, TDs were big for Achan. So like I just said, I don't want to be hypocritical. Like that, you can't really depend on that. He's not going to get a touchdown per game like he did last year. But just on this, his efficiency per play is crazy. Achan is going to go off. He's going in the second round late. His stock has been slipping where I've seen him in the third. That's insane to me. He's bulked up. He's ready for that increased workload. The coach continues to tell him that he's getting it. And Mike McDaniel's a man of his word, so I'm going to take him at his word. I think Achan is a beast. And I think, again, most of great value. Just don't overdraft him, and definitely do not draft him over Achan. That's just insanity. Don't do that. You'd have to really be – you just have to want to lose your league if you do something like that. This is unnecessary to take him there, even if you love him. All right, next story. Going to talk about the riveting Gus Edwards. All right, so the Athletics' Daniel Popper said that he sees Gus Edwards as the clear lead back for the Chargers heading into camp. And I would generally agree with this. If you guys are, let's see, if you guys think that Gus Edwards is going to be a top 25 back, let me know. Like, put it in the chat if you think yes or no, top 25 back. And I see the people in here, so you guys gotta throw in the comment if you think he's going to be a top 25 back. Put it in the chat. And so Popper also said that he believes that the secondary touches are open for competition, though if JK is healthy, he thinks he wins that job. And we've actually seen JK Dobbins practicing, so that's at least a good sign. He also believes that Vidal is currently third on the running back depth chart, which, even though a lot of people have been hyping him up, and I don't disagree with that, we should all have expected that. This is one of those very old school style coaching like regimes, so they're going to make him earn those touches. So that shouldn't surprise anybody. I wouldn't even let that discourage you. Okay. But to me, I actually think that there's like a wide range of outcomes for Gus Edwards. So no, I don't think that he's going to be a guaranteed top 25 guy. He could honestly be this year's version of Raheem Mostert. You're getting him in the 11th round, and he may just produce crazy value, especially in standard leagues. But he could also just be like an old injured running back. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, I'm fine to take him in the 11th round. I'm not taking him anywhere higher than that. Nowhere higher than that. And let's just kind of talk through like his injuries and stuff. All right, so he missed some of the offseason program this year with an undisclosed injury, even though he's going to be ready for training camp according to the head coach. But we just got to look at his injury history, because it's not like he has like a lot of hammy injuries. He has like I don't even know if any of these injuries repeat themselves. Like, he has a lot of different injuries, and he's sneakily an old running back. I feel like we feel like he's younger than that, but he's 29. And just, yeah. So the injuries, let's just talk about it. So ankle sprain, lower lumbar sprain. He obviously had the ACL tear in 2021, thigh hamstring sprain, and then concussion last year. So he's kind of all over the place with injuries. I thought like coming into like 2023, he was going to be right back to where he was, especially since he tore his ACL in 2021. So I was expecting more of his efficiency to be back. But it was by far his worst yards per carry. Like, he used to be the guaranteed, like, you book him for 5 yards a carry. You book it easy. And he gave you 4.1 behind that Baltimore offensive line. He's not Keaton Mitchell from an efficiency standpoint, but we saw what he did. It wasn't like the offensive line was that garbage or anything. It's a good offensive line, and he was still struggling. So yeah, I just worry that 29-year-old running back, currently like dealing with some sort of nagging injury, gets injured all the time. Like, I'm not like in love with taking him, obviously, especially in PPR league. But if you're gonna get him in the 11th round, I'm not gonna kill you for it. Like, that's fine, especially if you go 0 RB. But it's just he doesn't really engender a lot of excitement for me. That's my take on that. And also, I mean, I'm not gonna say that he's gonna be better, but the juices are getting flowing for some J.K. Dobbins, guys. Thinking about it, I mean, J.K. Dobbins is a free pick at the end of our drafts, and I mean, I get it. Achilles, ACL, I understand it. But let's stupidly set that aside. He's already going to be the second string guy. He has an often injured starting running back. If healthy, he just has a penchant for bigger plays than Gus Edwards does. So, like, in that year, he tore his ACL in 2022. Was it 2022? I thought it was in 2022. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I think it was. Yeah, Gus Edwards tore his ACL in 2022 also. So that's why, okay, his yards per carry at being a 4.1 makes a lot more sense. Got it. Okay. But so J.K. Dobbins in 2022, before he tore his ACL, number 3 in breakaway run rate, number 2 in juke rate, number 4 in true yards per carry. So if he gets an opportunity and if he is healthy, like, yeah, you're saying Dobbins, yuck, but like, if he gets that opportunity, why not throw him on your bench as literally the last pick of your draft? Because is there a world where like Gus Edwards gets dinged up, and then we're just like, man, J.K. Dobbins is like starting for like 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, or is he starting for a certain amount of time? And then he's like, maybe he's just better than Gus Edwards. He never gets back from that injury because he's 2 years older than J.K. And Kamani Vidal, he's a rookie, and even if he's more explosive, like, these coaches sometimes are just stubborn and they may just give him the ball more. So I don't hate it. I really do not hate it as a last like pick of your draft type of play. And then you just cut him after a week if he's really not even just not showing production, but not showing like he's getting on the field or anything. So I would not hate a move like that at all. All right, next story before we get into the quick hits. Yeah, I can see why people would be scared about having JK. So next story is about Sean Payton. About the Denver Broncos. So I'm just gonna give a disclaimer for all those people watching, and you guys gotta get into this chat, man. We got 60-something people in here. Get into the chat and throw some takes out there so we can respond to them. But generally speaking, I'm never gonna tell you guys to like avoid somebody or avoid a team, because I think that's like analytically just dishonest, and like you want to make sure that you are just taking data and evaluating that and taking emotion out of it and making your decisions. But I promise you, I'm going to have very few teams with the Bronco on them. I don't trust John Payton. I'm not really a big fan of how this new tenure is going to go. And so I'm kind of a little wary of his comments, even though on Coach Speak, his comments are actually pretty straightforward as well. But this is what he's going to say. Let me stop biasing you guys. So Broncos head coach Sean Payton said that Ardrick Estime, Nigerian, he's going to be a full go for training camp after undergoing a minor knee scope this offseason. And so they also believe Nick Kosmider from The Athletic said that he expects Estime to push Javonte Williams for the starting job in camp. So while I don't love, again, I'm trying my best to avoid the Broncos if I really can. This is interesting. This is interesting because this is a guy who's going like no one's drafting him right now. There was a report about Jaleel McLaughlin looking like the one in camp and stuff like that. I think this is super interesting just because of how Javonte Williams has played and the fact that he's not a Sean Payton guy. So like I don't think Sean Payton has any qualms about getting rid of Javonte Williams potentially. Williams, he's coming off the second year removed off of that terrible ACL, and I think it was like MCL, multiple ligament injury in 2022. This last year, he averaged 3.6 yards per carry, 1,000 yards like by barely, and then 5 touchdowns. And that's 1,000 yards total from scrimmage, not rushing. So Javonte Williams, you could say like he's due for a comeback. I just worry about him, especially if he's going to be getting pushed by like a young guy. Long story short, I do think that there's going to be some moves made in this backfield. So if you're doing any drafts now, especially like your underdog drafts, throw Estime on your bench. You may be like laughing to the bank with this one. So Stime is 5'11", 233 pounds, average 6.2 yards per carry in his 3 seasons at Notre Dame, and is just a dog. He's a dog, bro. He doesn't care. Like he's kind of rude about it too. He'll just run right through your chest. Like he is a powerful, powerful back. And no matter what happened, if they didn't make any moves on this roster, he will likely be the goal line back coming onto the field and getting that work because he's crazy at that. Like he is really, 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 really good at that down at the goal line. And so yeah, there's a world where if they make no moves, he just has value. But if they make any moves, he can go to the moon, man. So this is another player. At the end of your drafts, just chuck him on your bench. If you get him in your last pick, why not? Just throw him on your bench before people get to the wiser. I actually do think, personally, it would make sense if they made a roster move at the running back position. They currently have 5. They have Javonte Williams, Perine, McLaughlin, Estime, and they picked up undrafted free agent, like a high priority one, Blake Watson out of Memphis. I feel like it's a high – I think it's a high likelihood that like either Perine is cut or maybe they trade or cut Javonte Williams. I feel like you get some value for him. There's a lot of teams who could use him, so maybe a trade would be in the mix. But I feel like just the easier play would be to cut like a Perine, especially if you feel comfortable, because Estime is also like nasty as a pass blocker too. So he really just does a better Perine impression than Perine does. And so I do think that he's kind of the most susceptible one to me. And if that were to happen, I'm still, again, throwing him on my bench if I can. I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton's looking at the Javonte Williams and Estime thing as like a poor man's Ingram Kamara type of tandem. But with Ingram in this case having a lot more TD upside in this embodiment. So yeah, Audric Estime, why not take a shot late in the draft? Rhyming now. All right, so we're gonna end the show probably next few minutes with like some quick hits. All right. Brandon Ayuk drama. So according to George Kittle, this part's, I guess, not dramatic. He said he's not concerned about Brandon Ayuk's contract situation, specifically saying, I'm going to assume that Ayuk's going to be on our team by the time the season starts. So that's good, I guess. So he's talking about other people's money like that. So that's cool. Like he expects this guy to be there on the team. Great. But Brandon Ayuk, of course, he changed the narrative. He posted a still photo of a Commander's practice tape. So yeah. He did that on TikTok, and that's wild to me. that's crazy, bro. That's nuts. That's really wild to do that. He clearly wants to play with the Commanders if he had his druthers, and if he wasn't like forced, or if he wasn't in this contract situation with the 49ers. But I also think this is, again, like, it's good tactics, man. This is this, even though it feels gross, and there's a lot of NFL fans who get super bent out of shape about players like wanting the money they deserve. This is how you get paid, man. This is the playbook. This is what you do. You got to kind of be a nuisance about it. You got to be super annoying about it. Like the 49ers have a lot of leverage. You got to get some leverage back. You got to kind of turn the public tide about it. And I think he's kind of doing a good job with all these little drips of his interest with these other teams. And I think he's also personally enjoying it. He's mentioned that a couple times too. But I also think Jaden Daniels, I'm assuming that's the way he got this tape. If I'm a coach on the Commanders, I have to talk to Jaden Daniels. Like, we can't just be sending out tape like that. Like, yeah, you can't. I get to use your boy. We can't be showing other teams in the NFC practice plays. Like, that's wild business. Even if you do it you can't. I mean, that's crazy to me. I actually think that Brandon Ayuk still is going to sign. I actually think this is probably going to help him get a deal. I think it's going to be close to the $29 million that he wants. But even still, in fantasy, still a little rich for my taste, going late second on wide receiver 15. If he fell to the third, I feel so much better about it, but I don't hate it either way. So Cade Stover's this year's Laporta. I probably have to break out the tape. I'm not familiar, man. All right. Dak Prescott gave an update saying that there's at least been conversations about his contract, which is good to hear. When discussing his potential new contract, Dak said that the money will take care of itself. And so, yeah, I mean, at least conversations are happening. Like, I'm very bullish on the fact that they're also get a deal done. Maybe I'm just being naive. Everyone's getting a deal done. You get a deal. Everyone's getting their deals done this offseason. But I do think the Cowboys have been really, really, really stupid with this because they've given him so much leverage by waiting so long. Like he's on the last year of his deal. We now have these new signings of Goff and Trevor Lawrence for over $50 million a year. I would say that Dak is better than them. I know that's controversial about Goff, but to me, I would rather have Dak Prescott. I think that it's going to be interesting, especially with now the story of him having an ankle issues has been completely squashed. He squashed that himself, saying that he's wearing that for precaution when he went deep sea fishing. Yeah, I mean, he's another guy, great value. 7th round ADP, QB9. He's going to sign. He's healthy. The defense probably got a little worse to me, so I do think they're going to pass the ball a little bit. He's going to get CD Lamb. Even though he's not talking about his contract CD, they're going to get a deal done, so I'm not worried about it. All right, let me jump to you guys. You guys are talking about some stuff in the chat. All right, so Olave over Ayuk. Olave, hell yeah, Uncle Ted. So yeah, I think that I'm with you guys in the sense of fantasy football. In real football, it's not a question. Brandon Ayuk is a better wide receiver. But in fantasy football, 100% I agree with that. I think just the opportunities, he doesn't have other damn Avengers next to him like Brandon Ayuk does. And then they also added in Ricky Pearsall, who I absolutely love out of Florida. And he's just gonna be taking some targets away from the entire unit there. All right. Aaron Rodgers said, my Achilles feels good. That doesn't really matter for much, but that's at least good that it's not sore or anything. I expect him to play this year. I expect him to be slightly better than the version we saw in Green Bay, but not like some dynamo or anything like that. He's going to be real solid, but I don't like where he's not going to be MVP Aaron Rodgers. But to me in fantasy, that's just enough for Wilson. That's just enough for Brees to still go off in that consolidated offense. Next quick story. Tashawn Reed of The Athletic said that Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew split snaps with the starters during offseason team activities and will continue to do so as training camp begins. Apparently both of them got off to a rough start in OTAs, struggling with, these are not important, accuracy and turnovers, while offering very little in the way of vertical passing game. So it was reported in June by ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, that Aiden had the edge, and I think that they're going to start Aiden O'Connell. He was not terrible. That's the biggest compliment you're going to get from me, Aiden. He was not terrible down the stretch. So for the last 4 weeks, he was actually QB 15 over that span, and that includes a game against the Chiefs where he threw 9 times. But without the Chargers blowout, which was, that was so much of his production. He was QB 3 that week. He was QB 19 without that game. So still, not amazing, but solid. He was solid enough. And so I do think that Pierce clearly has a bias to give him a shot. And so while that it used to worry me about Devontae Adams was actually fine during that stretch. I do think that Devontae Adams kind of going a similar place to Brandon Ayuk, late second. He's wide receiver 13. I'm fine with the value. That's just one of those guys where you don't want to overthink it too much. So just take Devontae Adams. Don't try to get too cute about it. He's still going to be stellar, and I think they're going to figure out some level of passing game. I want to hear this comment. All right, Uncle Ted, you got some stuff in here. People say the Chargers are going to be run first are dead wrong. Chargers are going to wing the F out of it. Lad is this year's Puka. Oh, man, I think you would be right at home with so many people on our network here, except for me. I like Lad McConkey. I think he's solid. They are going to run the ball. They, over Greg Roman's career, they've been a top 5 run offense in every stop. Always. That's just what he does. They're going to do that now. They're going to do a lot of play action pass, and I think that Lad McConkey has a great opportunity to take that too. The thing that you just got to consider when you think about slots in those heavy run offenses is just formations. And so I worry that he's not going to be the one receiver sometimes on the field when they have a 3 tight end set. And so when they're doing a lot of those heavy tight end rotations, and they've been playing around a ton with the tight ends and Chargers camps, I just worry about that, the opportunities being so plentiful for him to break out, especially where I've seen him go sometimes in the 6th round, which is that's too rich for me. That should be too rich for a player of that caliber on that scheme of a team, even if he's a preferred target by Herbert. I actually think that Josh Palmer, who's going literally the 11th and 12th round, is a significantly better value, most likely going to be the lead receiver, which, that's been the reports in camp. He's been the main guy in a lot of the formations, and QJ's not doing anything. So I do think Lad McConkey could be next to Josh Palmer, and with Lab McConkey having better upside. But yeah, that's why to me, I kind of talk my way around it. I'm kind of cool on that whole team. I'd rather not like jump out of my skis to like overdraft them, and I'll just take the value. And again, value to me way better with Palmer than it is with Ladd. DJ Chark, we got a DJ Chark shout out. That's what's up. All right, next few stories are super quick. Mark Cabali believes Steelers running back Cordero Patterson will have a bigger role than being a specialist. So they brought him in actually right when the new kickoff rules changed. And so that's something where I remember making some posts being like super concerned initially. And then I remembered the kickoff rules like, all right, so that really assuaged my concerns some. But this story is just something to keep an eye on because I'm a big Jaylen Warren breakout year type of guy. Like I think that Jaylen Warren is about to turn up like no other. It's really, I mean, if you think about it, it's really setting up very similar to Tony Pollard before he broke out, like that year before he broke out in 2021 into 2022 where he goes crazy. Jaylen Warren's year, if you look statistically, is almost like identical, except for Jaylen Warren was significantly better as a receiver. And so I actually think that Jaylen Warren has like crazy upside. He has top 10 running back upside this year. Very similar situation last year on the running backs deal ahead of them. Zeke Elliott versus like a Najee Harris, who's got his 5th-year option declined. So I'm still very bullish on that. It's just something to keep an eye on. The thing is with Cordero Patterson, even though he is a wide receiver, they don't throw to him as much as you'd think in Arthur Smith's scheme. So that to me is actually more of something to keep an eye on with like Najee. Like keep an eye on Najee Harris because Arthur Smith really trusts Cordero Patterson. So I would not be surprised if we start to see Najee's like total carries like get touched a little bit more than we think. And this all kind of speaks to maybe their lack of confidence in Najee versus anything else. All right, let's see. We got a comment about. Wait a minute. People are down on Brooks because of ACL, yet it didn't slow down Brees last year. I would say it did. I would say it definitely slowed down Brees. I think it definitely slowed down Brees Hall at the beginning of the season. We saw, remember that big breakaway run he had? He got caught, and he was not getting caught later in the season. I think it just took him a while to ramp up. At the end of the season, we saw RB1 Brees. Like down the stretch, I think it was 4 of the last 5 weeks, he was like a top 3 running back, and he was RB1 during that stretch. I'm a huge fan of Brees Hall. He is neck and neck with me with CMC. And so, yeah, I do think like at the end of the year, I think that if we get the offense that the Canales ran with Rachaad White for Brooks can go crazy. I do think it's going to just take him a while to get going, though. But I actually love this scheme. I do think he is a better version of Rachaad White, especially on 1st and 2nd down, because we all know like Rachaad White just kind of sucks on 1st and 2nd down for some reason. All right. Last 2 stories really quick. I hate talking about T. Higgins because I never really cared. I never draft T. Higgins. But they did not reach a deal ahead of Monday afternoon's deadline. So he's not going to have a long-term deal. He just signed a franchise tag. Not surprising at all. He's going to be allowed to reach free agency next March unless the team trades him. I wouldn't think that they're going to trade him unless the team is faltering. But if the team is faltering, I think T. Higgins is a big-time trade target. He's in the 4th round right now, wide receiver 30, so the value's fine. But again, I'm just not the guy who gets him, man. All right. Last story. And let me know if you guys have more stuff. Throw it in the chat before we get out of here. Van Jefferson has pole position to be Pittsburgh's number 2 wide receiver, according to Mark Cabali, also of The Athletic. So for Van Jefferson, sorry, it doesn't mean anything to me. That just means a lot about George Pickens. George Pickens is about to go ape poop. He's about to go crazy. George Pickens is about to go crazy. His ADP is starting to tick up. It was in the 5th round all offseason. Now it's in the 4th. He's going as wide receiver 27. George Pickens is my wide receiver 13. If you're watching this right now and you think that George Pickens as wide receiver 13 is too high or too low, either put a comment in the chat or comment on this video and like it also, obviously. But yeah, I think that George Pickens is like a locked and loaded 150 targets in this Arthur Smith scheme. Now, everyone, again, thinking that Arthur Smith's scheme, obviously it's like super run heavy. We know that. And everyone gets scared off about what happened with Drake London last year. I think so much more about Drake London's year was quarterback play. And whenever Arthur Smith has had like a decent veteran, he's done very well. First year with Matt Ryan was not terrible. His last 2 years in Tennessee were amazing. He was like the number 4th and 9th scoring offense there, and A.J. Brown was killing it. And I do think stylistically, again, I say this all the time, George Pickens stylistically is closer to what A.J. Brown is than stylistically what Drake London is. So I'm Pickens, man. I'm all in on Pickens this year. All right. That'll be the end of it. Before I get out of here, I feel like it'd be just malpractice. I think we got a lot of stuff going on in this country. I think we could all deal with less craziness, more football. So make sure you guys stay locked in, praying that everyone always stays safe. And no matter what you believe, I think we're all just people. So make sure you guys just, hug each other or something. I don't know how to say it. Hug each other or do something. Be nice. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for the chat. Take care. Peace out. As I get my ending screen going. There you go. All right. Peace out, Joe.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.